Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 2 tight end rankings for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, we're going to be going over every single tight end in depth ranked inside of my top 24, as well as explaining why I have them ranked at each and every single spot. But before we get on into the video, I'd like to ask, if you are new to my YouTube channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure you hit that like button down below to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I'd also like to ask that if you guys have a Twitter and would like to follow me on there, I tweet all about fantasy football. I answer your guys' questions on there. All you got to do is tweet at me, and typically I try to answer. I also try to answer down below in the comment section. If you want to follow me again on Twitter, it is Notorious FNTSY on there. The link to my Twitter is also down below in the description. So without further ado, let's get into the video. We begin with my first ranked tight end of week number 2, Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs, going up against the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. Now, this battle between Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson over the last couple of years has been a one-sided affair. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs are 3-0 up against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Does that mean that it's going to be a shit kicking by the Kansas City Chiefs all over the Baltimore Ravens defense? Probably not, but it doesn't matter what defense the Kansas City Chiefs are playing. Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill are top tier options week in and week out at their respective positions. Here this week for Travis Kelce, I think this is a great matchup for him up against the Ravens. We saw Darren Waller look very good up against them last week. I expect Travis Kelce to have a huge game here up against the Ravens. Next up, we have the guy we just talked about, Darren Waller of the, turn your volume down a little bit, Las Vegas Raiders, going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. Darren Waller had a humongous game up against the Ravens. Like I just said before, they force feed this man the ball. Now, is that going to be the winning formula for the team? Probably not, because we saw early on in the game, it was just that Derek Carr literally didn't see anyone. He had his blinders on to Bryan Edwards, had his blinders on to Hunter Renfrow, all these wide receivers, Henry Ruggs out there, Zay Jones, and he's just throwing the ball. He is locked and loaded on to Darren Waller. He is going to force feed Darren Waller in this game as well. Sure, I'm sure the Pittsburgh Steelers defense in Pittsburgh is stronger than the Baltimore Ravens, but at the end of the day, he's still going to see some absurd volume. Maybe it's not 20-something targets like he saw up against the Ravens last week, but he is still going to be the #1 target on that Las Vegas Raiders offense, and even up against a tough Pittsburgh Steelers defense, I still got him as my tight end number 2. At number 3, we have George Kittle of the San Francisco 49ers going up against the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia. The 49ers last week were probably the most confusing team to follow, because the game begins and they fumble the ball right away, right off the rip, and then after that, it's all 49ers. And then towards the end of the game, it was all Lions. The Lions almost had this crazy comeback game where they were down 7 zillion points in the fourth quarter and almost came back to tie up the game. George Kittle looked very good in that game. Now, with the 49ers, it's not guaranteed that Brandon Ayuk is going to be stuck in this doghouse in this game up against the Eagles, because we saw Brandon Ayuk last week. Basically, everyone and their mother was dubbing him as a must start. I was as well. It seemed like the perfect matchup up against the Lions. It was an easy smash for him. And then Brandon Ayuk is barely playing in the game. Will that change in week number 2? Maybe, but my assumption is that he is not going to be seeing a crazy workload, and that further benefits George Kittle here up against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles defense did look relatively strong up against the Atlanta Falcons and the tight end of the Atlanta Falcons, Kyle Pitts, last week, but I think George Kittle has no struggle putting up a big game this week up against the Eagles. At number 4, we have TJ Hawkinson of the Detroit Lions going up against the Green Bay Packers. Now, it doesn't matter how bad the Detroit Lions offense is, because the offense looked really bad at the beginning of the game, then started to catch fire towards the end of the game. But even if the offense isn't able to get much going up against the Green Bay Packers, and based upon what we saw from the Packers last week up against the Saints, I would assume that the Lions will at least be able to score maybe twice in this game, at least twice, I would say. So I think TJ Hawkinson has a huge role in this offense. He's the clear best receiving option out there besides DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. Those are the two best receiving options on that team, with TJ Hockenson, who I believe is the best. The other wide receivers there, who fucking knows who the number one receiving target is out there? TJ Hockenson is going to be force-fed all game long by Jared Goff, unless the Green Bay Packers organization has completely just crumbled to the ground. They went from this great empire, and they just completely fell within 1 week of the 2021 NFL season. If they play like they played up against the Saints, then maybe TJ Hockenson won't be used that much, right? Because they'll be up by $7 million up against the Packers, but I don't expect that to happen. I expect the Packers to have a good game, and I think TJ Hockenson will be used very heavily by the Lions. Next up at number 5, we have Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Mark Andrews had a solid matchup last week up against the Raiders, and he didn't perform all that well. Now, Mark Andrews is not a guy that I really expect to contend to be the number one tight end at the end of the year. I think that is kind of up to Kelsey, Waller, Kittle, or TJ Hockenson to be the number one guy in fantasy football at the tight end position. But does that mean that I think Mark Andrews is a bum or something? No. It doesn't. It's just that I don't see that same upside week in and week out with Mark Andrews as I do with the other players, because the Baltimore Ravens are such a run-heavy team. Mark Andrews will still be perfectly fine and will get a decent amount of usage here up against the Chiefs. At number 6, we have Rob Gronkowski of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going up against the Atlanta Falcons. Now, going into week 1 up against the Dallas Cowboys, that was a very easy matchup for Rob Gronkowski. He plays good, obviously ends up scoring 2 tugs in that game. But when you were looking at it beforehand, you weren't going to be all hands on deck, hoorah, hoorah for Rob Gronkowski, right? Because, hey, they like to use Rob Gronkowski in the playoffs last year as a pass catcher, but early on in the season, a lot throughout the regular season for the Bucs, you saw Gronk going out there and blocking. But then in week number 1 of this year in the Super Bowl, Gronk looked like vintage Rob Gronkowski, and vintage Rob Gronkowski as if that's like 20 fucking years ago or something. Just a couple of years ago, Gronk was doing that in New England. So if he's going to continue to see this big pass catching usage in a offense that's going to be able to easily put up points on the Atlanta Falcons, then Rob Gronkowski certainly has the opportunity to be a top 5 tight end. At number 7, we have Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the San Francisco 49ers. What the shittiest thing that happened all offseason for Dallas Goedert was the fact that for some reason Zach Ertz is still there. Zach Ertz and Carson Wentz had this, like, I don't even know a kumbaya after the end of the playoff, or after the end of the season last year. They didn't end up making the playoffs. They lose that game, and they're just sitting in the field, and it's like, man, it's over for us. We're Dunsky here. We're going to go somewhere else. It is what it is. And then everyone's banging the drum. Bang, 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 bang. It's Dallas Goedert season. Dallas Goedert's going to be this top 5 tight end, blah, 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 blah. And I'll admit it, I believed Zach Ertz was going to be gone as well, but then He hit us with the Jordan Belfort. I'm not fucking leaving. And he's still there. He's still there in Dallas. In Philadelphia. So Dallas Goedert is the number 1 tight end, but Zach Ertz is still looming in the distance. He did get banged up in their matchup up against the Falcons last week, but all signs are pointing towards him playing this week up against the Niners. This is going to be a tough matchup for the Eagles because the Niners defense is relatively solid, I understand. But Nick, later on in the game up against the Lions, they got scored on a bunch. Yeah, it's because they played prevent defense, which makes absolutely no fucking sense. You're up by $7 million. You want to know why you're up by $7 million? Because you're playing normal defense. Don't go into prevent defense. You're just letting them score. Prevent defense does not prevent anything. It just does not. Unless it's like the final play of the game when you're trying to stop a Hail Mary, then there's no reason to be in prevent defense, in my opinion. But again, I'm not a head coach that gets paid zillions of dollars to talk about football. I'm just a guy on YouTube that yells into a microphone and a webcam. So Dallas Goedert here up against the Niners. Not the ideal matchup, but Jalen Hurts does like throwing the ball his way. He does have a chance to be a top 5 tight end on the week. At number 8, we have Noah Fant of the Denver Broncos going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Noah Fant looked relatively solid up against the Giants in week number 1. This week he gets the Jaguars, who got cut up O.J. Simpson style by Tyrod Taylor and that offense in Houston. This matchup is also pretty solid for the whole Denver Broncos team. Jerry Jeudy ends up getting hurt, which sucks. Sucks immensely. It really did seem like Jerry Jeudy was about to have an excellent season because of how much Mr. Teddy Roosevelt, Teddy Bridgewater, was throwing him the ball. Things don't end up going his way. He ends up getting hurt, which sucks. But Noah Fant now does have an increased role in this offense. I like this matchup here up against the Jags. At number 9, starting to pump the brakes slightly on Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa Bay. Now, if you guys watch my trade target video, I'm telling you guys to trade for Kyle Pitts because while I wasn't that bullish on him in the offseason, I talked about how, hey, when you really put things on paper, when you're looking at the stats, when you're looking at the history of the National Football League, in the last decade, only one tight end in their rookie season has finished inside of the top 5, which is obviously crazy. That was just Evan Ingram. So, when you're looking at the stats, all the stats from the recent history are pointing towards Kyle Pitts not having that top 5 season. And I still don't think he's going to have that top 5 season, but he was so bad last week. There's bound to be a bounce back. This Falcons offense was limp dick last week up against the Philadelphia Eagles. And I don't expect the Atlanta Falcons to be this playoff contending team, this great team, but I expect them to look much better than they looked up against the Eagles in the future of the season, in the rest of the season. So I think Kyle Pitts will be perfectly fine. Got him at tight end 9 here. This is a tough matchup up against the Bucs, but he should be fine on the rest of the season. At number 10, we have Big Bob Tunyon, Robert Tunyon of the Green Bay Packers going up against the Detroit Lions. That whole Packers team just shit the bed. Completely and utterly bad game. Rodgers stinks. Aaron Jones stinks. Devontae Adams plays all right because he got so many targets, but he stunk in comparison to what you wanted. Robert Tunyon stunk. That whole offense sucked ass. The defense, soft as baby shit. It was a smacking by famous Jameis Winston onto that Packers defense. It was a rolling of a game. None of these players look good, but now it's time to bounce back. You're playing up against the Lions. This is about as easy as it gets. I expect a big bounce back from the whole Packers offense. I am still a little bit pulled back on Tunyon. Tunyon's numbers last year were heavily dominated by the touchdown number, but again, the Packers are going to bounce back. They're going to be scoring touchdowns. Robert Tunyon should be fine as tight end number 10. Before we get into 11 through 20, I would like to ask if you guys have ended up enjoying thus far to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below as well as hitting that like button. Back into it now. Tight ends 11 through 20. Coming in at number 11, we have Tyler Higbee of the LA Rams going up against the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis. Tyler Higbee looked pretty solid for the Rams in their week 1 matchup up against the Chi-Town Bears. Wasn't obviously this elite tight end in that matchup. This week, though, he gets the Indianapolis Colts, which is a far better draw for the tight end position. The Indianapolis Colts defense looked dog shit up against the Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks, so I think Tyler Higbee should be in for a relatively solid game, unless, of course, Cooper Kupp scores 6 touchdowns in this game, which is entirely possible because him and Matthew Stafford just have some crazy level connection. At number 12, we have Jared Cook of the LA Chargers going up against the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys just got pantsed by Rob Gronkowski. We talked about it with Gronk a little bit earlier. It is clear that up against the Dallas Cowboys is going to be one of the most ideal matchups for the tight end this season, and Jared Cook did pretty solid up against the Washington football team, which is a much tougher task, in my opinion, than the Dallas defense. Not even in my opinion, probably in every single person's opinion, because the Dallas Cowboys defense is terrible. The Washington football team's defense maybe isn't going to live up to all the hype it got in the offseason, but it's still pretty solid. Jared Cook in for a solid game here up against the Cowboys. At number 13, we have Jannu Smith of the New England Patriots going up against the New York Football Jets. Now, going into week 1 for the Patriots going up against the Dolphins, I wanted to wait to see what was going to happen with Jannu Smith and Hunter Henry. I was not ready to exclaim that Jannu Smith was 100% going to be the lead target on the team. And I said this because I just wanted to see it before I believed it. I said last week you put a gun to my head, I'm going to tell you to start Jannu Smith over Hunter Henry, but I wasn't 100% locked in on that take. So I'd rather just wait a week, right? Let things play out, and then come back the next week and give you guys what I saw, tell you what I saw, and then tell you what to do. Jannu Smith looked like the clear number 1 tight end receiving option on this team. This week he gets the Jumbo Jets, who are a bad defense. Jannu Smith should be able to have a relatively solid game, tight end 13. At number 14, we have Gerald Everett of the Seattle Seahawks going up against the Tennessee Titans. Last week up against the Indianapolis Colts, not a lot of people were believing in Mr. Gerald here. But me? I stood tall, sat down tall, I guess, and told you guys, even though I'm not that tall, I told you guys, hey, Everett's going to have a great game. Everett's going to look good. No one else seem to have liked that in the they didn't like that. Kirk Cousins, he likes that though. In the fantasy industry, a lot of people were not talking up Gerald Everett. I said he was going to do good. Guess what? He does good up against the Titans defense here. This is another great matchup. Very safe play, in my opinion, this week up against the Titans. Now is basically when shit hits the fan, right? After the top 14 tight ends, it is a complete and utter shit show. A gamble. A dice roll. A coin flip here between all of these guys. 15, we got Cole Kmet of the Chi-Town Bears going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. I forgot to mention that the Thursday night players are not included in this video. They're not going to be included in the running back rankings, the wide receiver rankings, the tight end rankings, or the quarterback rankings because they already played, and there's no need to talk about Logan Thomas again because he already had his game. So, 15, Cole Kmet. This is a solid matchup up against the Cincinnati Bengals. But Jimmy Graham is still there, lingering in the distance. He did get some use up against the LA Rams, and that worries me. Why is he still there? It's kind of the similar scenario to what we were talking about earlier. It's like, why is Zach Ertz still there in Philly? Why is Jimmy Graham still there in Chicago? But it is what it is. Cole Kmet appears to be the number 1 tight end. He was last week going up against the LA Rams, so I think he should be fine this week. At number 16, we have my boy Mike Licky Gesicki of the Miami Dolphins going up against the Buffalo Bills. Will Fuller out in this game. Will Fuller potentially out for a very long time for undisclosed reasons, according to Brian Flores, the Dolphins coach. Now, whatever is going on with Will Fuller, I personally hope that he is okay. Brian Flores is not going to come out and tell us what happened. Now, again, you can assume all you want. I assume that it is something to do, something very personal to him. I hope he is okay. I hope his family is okay. I hope whatever happened to him is not an issue soon. I hope that everything is resolved. I hope that he is okay. Because at the end of the day, we're just talking about fantasy football. If you're going to get mad that Will Fuller doesn't play because of some personal issue, then honestly, you can go fuck yourself. Because at the end of the day, what is most important in football is these guys' lives. These guys are real people too. They put on the helmet on Sunday, Thursday, Monday to play a game for us. But at the end of the day, they're still real people. So please don't go on Twitter. Please don't go on Instagram and hound Will Fuller. Say shit to this guy because he doesn't owe you anything, frankly. I'm a Dolphins fan, and I hope Will Fuller is okay. Gesicki now, with Fuller out, is in a better position, but he did nothing last week. Nothing. Zilch up against the New England Patriots. This week he gets Buffalo, another tough matchup. I don't know how you could project him to do very good if he had little use last week. He's a fine tight end this week. I think this is an okay matchup, but I am certainly worried about Gesicki. At number 17, we have Tyler Conklin of the, not of the Arizona Cardinals, like it says on the graphic, of the Cincinnati Bengals going up against the Arizona Cardinals. Tyler Conklin looked like a solid fill-in for Irv Smith. Didn't look like Irv Smith. I thought Irv Smith was going to have an excellent season. Conklin, definitely a step down from Irv Smith, but he is on a solid team in the Bengals. The worry here is the matchup up against the Cardinals. The Cardinals looked like they had one of the best defenses in the National Football League up against the Tennessee Titans. They looked so good. They looked unstoppable. This week up against Cincinnati, I expect things to look a little bit better. Tyler Conklin is an alright play this week. At 18, we have Austin Hooper of the Cleveland Browns going up against the Houston Texans. Hooper, I thought was a good matchup up against the Chiefs, and David Njoku was getting a lot of usage. Who could have seen that coming? Probably no one. Literally no one. So with that said, I assume Hooper will get more usage this week. This is a smash matchup up against Houston, but he falls down the rankings because Njoku is lingering there. He's still there, and that does kind of scare me. At number 19, we have Hunter Henry of the New England Patriots going up against the Jets. Now, I spoke about before how Jannu Smith seems to be the lead tight end in targets, but this is targets. I think my voice cracked right there. But Hunter Henry is still on the team, and they're playing the Jets, so there's a chance he scores a touchdown, which puts him inside the top 20. Closing out the top 20 is Anthony Firkser of the Tennessee Titans going up against Seattle. And this is the same analogy I just used earlier with the Green Bay Packers. Unless the Titans go from this team that so many people are talking about, just like with the Packers are going to potentially win the NFC, right? They're going to win their division. They're going to the playoffs, at least, right? Everyone thinks the Packers are going to the playoffs. Everyone also thinks the Titans are going to go to the AFC playoffs. They're going to potentially make a run in the playoffs. Maybe they go to the AFC Championship game. Maybe they go to the Super Bowl. So, unless you believe everything has fucking fallen apart, the empire has fucking cracked, then Anthony Firkser may not still be a good option. But all I'm saying is that the Titans should be fine. Anthony Firkser, he's a touchdown or bust tight end. If he scores here up against Seattle, you'll be happy. If not, you're going to be very, very sad with Anthony Fursker. Now on to tight ends 21 through 24. At number 21, we have Juwan Johnson of the Saints going up against the Panthers. Juwan Johnson scored not one, but two tugs on Sunday up against the Green Bay Packers. Will that happen again this week? Probably not. How much will his usage change if they go to passing the ball a lot more? Because up against the Packers, they just ran a lot because the game was already over. Whereas up against the Panthers, maybe they're able to fight back into the game, and Juwan Johnson gets more usage. I'm waiting to see that before I just go hog wild and tell you to start him as like a top 12 tight end. At number 22, we have Zach Ertz of the Eagles going up against the 49ers. Like I said, Dallas Goedert is the guy, but this team likes to run two tight end sets. Zach Ertz will still be useful on the team, and if he finds his way into the end zone, he is worthy of a start. At 23, we have Eric Ebron of the Steelers going up against the San Francisco 49ers. Now, what I said last week was that, hey, Eric Ebron could be very useful for fantasy if they don't use Pat Freiermuth, the tight end they picked in the draft. And guess exactly what they did? They used Freiermuth a little bit, which will detract from the value of Eric Ebron. He's actually playing up against the Raiders. That was kind of a mix-up on the graphic on my end. I apologize for that being wrong, but Eric Ebron against the Raiders, it's a good matchup, but Freiermuth is still there. Tight end 23, 24. Blake Jarwin of the Dallas Cowboys going up against the Chargers in LA. There's going to be a high-scoring back-and-forth affair. If Jarwin finds the end zone, you'll be happy. If not, you're going to be quite sad. That's kind of the trend with the tight ends that are later on in the rankings. Unless you have one of those 14, 15, 16 guys that I'm confident in, then otherwise it's basically just a shit show after that. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. Hit that like button down below as well. I love each and every single one of you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. As always, goodbye.